Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, brother. How you doing?
Doing well. Dad will be here. He had to go. The associate minister was feeling under the weather, so he had to go to the back of the building and open up a garage door for
Good.
the AC people to come in and work. So
All right. Good.
yeah, so he said let y'all know he's gonna be here, just not it right now. It'll be a few minutes.
All right. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
How you been doing, Mario?
I've been doing fine, Nathan. I've been doing fine. Uh, to God be the glory. I've been doing good. Cannot
Yes, sir.
complain.
I always enjoy being in class with you, Mario. You always you think outside the box, and I think outside the box. And you
Man.
sometimes you come up with things I have. Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
Well, I
And
could say the same thing about you, brother. I could say the same thing. Uh, Thank you very much, brother. It's so good, especially GSC has provided me the opportunity to really see the body as a body. Here in Costa Rica, I know the Costa Rican ways, the Costa Rican way of thinking, but suddenly I'm with all of you, and I'm just exposed to a whole new world. It just makes me
whole
wonder
new
what heaven is
culture.
going to be like.
I was talking with some people. I said, yeah, because I grew up in Alabama, so I know the culture in Alabama. Uh, and They have a lot of people that have moved in from outside up north and down
Yeah.
in Florida. And I said, yeah, Lower Alabama is a little bit different.
Mm.
They hold a different thing. I said, but the nice thing is the Lord's people, they're made up. If you look back in the first century, they're made up of all different cultures. Uh, you look at
Mm.
Ephesus, you have the Hellenistic Jews and you have the
Right.
Gentiles, and they're all getting along.
Right.
Rome, too. You had a lot of How did the Rome church get started? Someone from Pentecost,
Right.
one of the
Right.
Jews that would have had to take that back and got everything started.
Right. And from Paul, you can see that not always that melting pot was getting along that well. He had to write some letters to them.
And I tell you, I was looking and just researching up in northern Italy right now. There is a huge faction of people that they're like with the Catholicism. They're like, this isn't right. You know, this isn't what the Bible teaches. What trying to find the church that does what the Bible teaches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Most definitely. Well,
There he is.
brother Hampton, brother, I'm sorry, I cannot, brother friend. Is that how you pronounce it, Taylor?
Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was like, is that friend? Friend? Good. Appreciate it. My Costa Rican thing, brother. Just being Costa Rican.
So how's everybody doing today?
Beyond blessed, brother. Hello.
Good,
How you doing
good.
today?
I'm doing well.
All
Uh,
right.
this typical church work I got here, and uh, my coworker contacted me and said, "Hey, they're coming to work on more air conditioning here. We're having to replace a bunch." And
Mm.
he said, "I'm not feeling good. Can you go open the garage doors way back?" Boy, I don't know if I'll get there in time or not. All right. We're ready for Daniel chapter 4. And to me, this is one of the most interesting chapters and significant when you start talking about the kingdom. It plays a critical role in that. So let's look at the opening verses. And I propose to you that, as I understand it, these opening verses are literally written by Nebuchadnezzar the king. It may be that Daniel had got a copy of whatever he said. I don't know. Or he's inspired to write it down, and either one works. It doesn't matter to me. But he writes this, and we're really going to come back, I think, and think about this as we get to the end of the chapter, because this introduces the way that he thought after the events of this chapter. So really, when you pick up verse 4, he is going back and thinking and relating to us, okay, here's what happened. And verses 1 through 3 is, this is the conclusion I reached as a result of what I'm about to tell you. So everybody with me on that? Okay, let's look at verses 1 through 3 then. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I thought it good to declare the signs and wonders that the Most High God has worked for me. How great are his signs, and how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. Now, if you're already writing your lesson on the kingdom, I don't think you want to miss that verse. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. His dominion is from generation to generation. Now, by the way, his dominion, that's talking about his sovereignty, isn't it? And so as we go through these lessons, what I encourage you to do is have all four of these things that you're required to do. Have a document. It may be blank at the beginning. Just at the top it says sovereignty. That's all it may say. But every time you hear a verse, and we've demonstrated that already a time or two, every time you hear a verse that has to do with sovereignty, write that verse on that document and save it. And when you talk about kingdom, when you hear a verse on kingdom, write the verse and save the document, and so forth, all the way down. Because then writing the paper is going to be easy. Daniel's going to do it for you. that's going to be the simple part. Okay, so what goes on here? It appears that Daniel merely records the words of Nebuchadnezzar in this chapter. The Assyrian and Babylonian kings regarded themselves as kings of all the earth, and in their inscriptions were accustomed thus to speak of themselves. And so notice he says the king to all peoples, nations, languages that dwell in all the earth. And we've seen that several times already, haven't we? Kings, nations, and language, or excuse me, peoples, nations, and languages. He uses that often in his writing, his thinking about himself. And Daniel's he doesn't argue with him about it. God's going to convince him, maybe you need to think about that another way. Maybe you're not as powerful as you think you are. And we're going to talk about that, certainly, in this particular lesson today. Signs were extraordinary events, and wonders described their effect on people. So, really, signs and wonders in some ways could be viewed as the same thing. It's just looking at it from a different angle. A sign is a powerful thing that happens. It's something extraordinary. A wonder is the reaction that people have to the sign. So they may be talking about the same thing. Young thinks this edict was prepared under Daniel's influence and has, therefore, quite some theocratic coloring. So, in other words, listen to him when he says about God, he is the Most High God. Did Nebuchadnezzar write that all by himself, or was he encouraged by Daniel? Well, we don't know that for sure, but Young in his commentary believes he's influenced by Daniel. That's how he ends up writing it that way. And that may be. It may also be that the events of this chapter totally transformed his thinking. That's another possibility in regard to his view of God. So, begin in verse 4 then. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore I issued a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known to me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers came in, and I told them the dream, but they did not make known to me its interpretation. But at last Daniel came before me. His name is Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God. In him is the spirit of the holy God. And I told the dream before him, saying, okay, notice that last verse that we just looked at. He still talks about my God, little g God, true enough, but he's still a polytheist. No matter what all's changed in his thinking about Almighty God, he's still a polytheist. He still looks on Bel as being his God, and we might say one of his gods, but nonetheless his God. The king was at rest. Now that expression describes him being free from care. He hasn't got a care in the world. You can almost see him sitting on the porch in his rocking chair with a glass of iced tea. Just surveying everything. Whatever. Just think at rest in very glowing terms, you might say. He also was flourishing, and that describes growing green and prosperous. We are in the United States in the middle of winter, and honestly, everything looks dead. All the leaves are basically off the trees, and if there are any left, they've turned brown and different other colors. It's very stark in its view. But come springtime, things are going to flourish again. We'll see in this area, we'll see a tree called the redbud, and they will bud out, beautiful, beautiful blossoms. And the other beautiful plants like the jonquils, which is a flower that comes up in the early spring, and just its beautiful yellow bloom is going to be everywhere on the ground, and all of a sudden it's going to feel like, oh, the world is starting fresh. Well, here's Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, my world's growing, it's fresh, it's exciting, and I'm at rest. He doesn't have anything to do, or doesn't have to, because of how good it is. But he has a dream, and the dream made him afraid. Young says that the words that he uses here indicate that his whole being was agitated. Have you ever been so worried that your whole body kind of shook? That's effectively what he's setting forth here. Actually, the word is stronger than the word translated terrified. It's beyond terrified, if you can even imagine that. And all I can think of is reaching a point of fear that you're almost immobilized. You're so afraid of whatever's going on. So it's something maybe along that order. The king recognized that the God of Daniel was different from his own gods. The thought is that which is truly God is found within Daniel. The epithet holy does not here have reference to moral purity, but is rather roughly equivalent to our own word divine. So he is a divine being, not holy. Well, we usually think of the word holy as being totally pure, white, that kind of thing. That's not the image at all. Free from sin, no. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't recognize any of that. But he does understand divine, the power of this great God. And that's really more what Nebuchadnezzar is focused on here. All right, pick up verse 9. Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, because I know that the Spirit of the Holy God is in you, and no secret troubles you. Explain to me the visions of my dream that I've seen, and its interpretation. These were the visions of my head while on my bed. I was looking, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and became strong. Its height reached to the heavens. It could be seen to the ends of all the earth. Its leaves were lovely, its fruit abundant, and in it was food for all. The beasts of the field found shade under it. The birds of the heavens dwelt in its branches, and all flesh was fed from it. I saw in the visions of my head while on my bed, and there was a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. All right, we'll continue with the dream in just a minute. But we'll begin with this. He saw a tree that really occupied the center spot in all the earth. Now, what concept did Nebuchadnezzar have of the earth? I don't know. He may have viewed it as kind of a just a flat, wide open space. You know, that's what they thought in the days of Christopher Columbus. They thought if you sailed off far enough, you'd just sail off the end of the world. It was just a flat thing that was there. So he may have thought that. I don't know. But the imagery is if you can imagine, to think of it the way we would think of it, that imagine a globe, and here's this tree, and its limbs reach all the way around the globe. That's the way he's thinking. The verbs indicate not a fixed state, but rather a state of becoming. That's what Young said. So it's not yet filled the whole earth, but it's in the process of filling the whole earth. Its height reaching up and reaching out. It was feeding, giving shade and shelter to the beasts and the birds. And then a watcher comes. And the word watcher might better be translated a constantly vigilant one came down from heaven. I wonder if we would live different lives if we thought of God as a constantly vigilant watcher. I fear, really, even regarding myself, that at times I think of God almost as human. And so if it's dark, he can't see me, right? Well, no, that's not right. If no person can see me, then surely God can't see me. Well, that's not right. God is constantly vigilant. He's vigilant. He's always watching, and that's really that within itself is a powerful thing. If I did not, but if I had have said, do an entire lesson on God, then you'd have to go here. Now, I will suggest this. You have a lesson on providence. If I told you, I think I'd open 4 sheets, 4 documents, okay? Used to be you'd have to write all this down on paper. I'm old, okay? So yeah, I'd have 4 different pages of paper, or maybe 4 envelopes. You could do it that way. Now you don't have to do that. You make a folder on your computer, or just make a document within your class folder for this class, whatever. And one of those folders is supposed to be, or one of those documents is supposed to be labeled Providence. And when you start talking about the providence of God, and you see that he is constantly vigilant, that changes your whole view of him. Does he know what's going on in my life? The answer to that's pretty easy. Yes, he knows what's going on in my life. He's watching all the time. And so given that, I can have more confidence in his ability to take care of me, because he's always watchful. He's He doesn't ever go to sleep. The enemy in a battle is hoping they can come at the time when the guards are all asleep. And if you watch, like take Gideon, they don't attack in the daytime. They attack in the middle of the night, and it would be startling, because the guards in the middle of the night, you can almost see them getting sleepy because there's nothing out there, nothing out there. Yeah, well then all of a sudden pitchers break and torches are raised and a shout goes up, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Boy, all of a sudden the watchers, the guards are totally as I'd say discombobulated. I know that's not a word, but they're in complete confusion would be a way to put that. So take that into account as you read this. God is never in a state of confusion. He always knows what's going on in my life. He always knows what's going on in your life, and that makes his providence. And my dad, when he was living, would define providence as providence. He divided the word up. Providence. God provides for me. And that's what providence is all about. All right, any questions so far? Because I have been told, and no, I have no problem with this, that sometimes my vocabulary is a bit steep. So if you've bumped into a problem, let me know. If there's something you got a question about. Okay, everybody's good. All right, let's continue then. Start at verse 14. Now remember, this is the watcher that we're now going to hear from. He cried aloud and said thus, "Chop down the tree and cut off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get out from under it, and the birds from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump and roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze. In the tender grass of the field, let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let him graze with the beasts on the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from that of a man. Let him be given the heart of a beast, and let 7 times pass over him." All right, the tree was to be stripped of its former glory. I told you about this. We have in our area, we have a tree that's called a live oak. They grow to be huge. They're just huge trees. And the live oak has all these, beautiful small green leaves all over them. And part of their beauty comes from all of those leaves and the green. And by the way, a live oak, even now when everything else is dead, the live oak's still green. Kind of interesting. So it has glory in a sense of the word all the time. But if you could come along and occasionally we'll have a hurricane. I think some of you would call that a typhoon. But we'll have that come along and it'll just rattle and shake all the leaves off the tree. So now even the live oak will look naked. All its glory is taken away. Well, this tree that he is seeing is stripped of all its glory. All the green is gone. It's still got big branches, but there's nothing on them. The birds are fleeing and the animals getting out from under it. It's just, man, things have changed for this tree. Kyle, and this is from Keil and Delitzsch, and my suspicion is you can get Keil and Delitzsch on for your Logos. Most of you use Logos? Those of you that have that kind of a program, if you got Logos, I imagine you can get Keil and Delitzsch. Now, how much would it be? I don't know. I'm old. I have a hard copy. So I just open up the book and read it. But Keil sees the fetters. There's these fetters of bronze and brass figuratively or spiritually, of the withdrawal of free self-determination through the fetter of madness. Now, he's looked all the way down the chapter. He knows what's coming. And so knowing what's coming makes Kyle write it this way. And that's interesting. As long as I have free will, there's in some ways there's nothing binding me. Now there ought to be. I'll let God bind me. I'll let God control my life. But if I can exercise my free will whatever way I want to, Nebuchadnezzar is going to have his free will taken away from him. The crowning glory of the king, his reason, will be taken from him, and he will become like an irrational creature, a lower animal. All right, you know that I underline things in my book, my Bible. And here I have underlined heart from verse 16. Let his heart be changed from that of a man. Let him be given. So I underlined heart, and I've got changed from a man, and then given, and then I've got heart of a beast. I've got all that underlined, just separately, individually. Now, why? Well, I want to hang on to that. We're going to come back to it in verses 34 and 36. Okay? I want you to really notice heart. Heart. He's taking away the human heart and he's giving him an animal heart. So what is the heart? All right, look at verses 34 and 36 briefly. We'll come back to them later. But look at this and read again. Now remember what was taken from him. Somebody? His heart. Okay. I saw you, David. I saw your mouth move. Okay. His heart was taken away. But now watch. Verse 34. And at the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me. What's his heart? It's his understanding. It's his mind. It's his thinking. Now skip down to verse 36. At the same time, my reason returned to me. So guess what? I told you what I underlined in verse 16. I've got heart, changed from, a man, given, heart of a beast. I got all that underlined into it separately in a green marker. All right. Then in the margin of my Bible, I wrote, see verses 34 and 36. So on verse 34, I underlined understanding returned. In verse 36, I underlined my reason returned. You see what I'm doing, right? What's your heart in the Bible? It's your mind. See? By the way, I'll demonstrate. See, our thinking in the United States, and maybe in most English-speaking societies, I'm not sure of that. We say heart. We're describing our mind or emotion, that kind of a thing. So we might sing a song. We'd say, "Oh, my love has captured my heart." Well, my heart is a big old beating, fleshy thing. It really has no feeling, well, hopefully, at all. I mean, pain it might have, but I don't want that. Okay. But in the New Testament, sometimes there's a word that is often translated. Let's see, so I can remember the word. I may have to go to a use of it. Right now, my mind went blank. Ephesians. Okay. In Ephesians 4:32, he says, be kind to one another, tender-hearted. And tender-hearted is splanchnidzomai. It doesn't matter if you know that. When you study Greek, you'll get into that. I'm not worried about that. And literally translated, it would be translated this way: moved to the bowels. Well, that doesn't sound very pleasant to me. I don't know about you. When I hear that, I think of something totally different. Okay, but what they meant was the Greeks thought of the bowels as the seat of the emotion. Okay, now I want you to think about something. When you meet the girl that you think, oh, I'd like to marry her, where do you feel it? Don't you kind of have what we sometimes describe as butterflies in your stomach? Something like that? All right, when you see your child fall and cut themselves and they begin to bleed, where do you feel it? Don't you get a little bit nauseated? Does it impact your bowels, so to speak? So you see, the Greeks may have gotten it better than we do in the English, at least in the United States, because they would say that the seat of the emotion is the bowels. So I'm waiting for some singer to write a song. Baby, you have captured my bowels. All right, but you get the point. The point is that reason and heart are the same. They're the same idea in Scripture. That's the real point. And I've illustrated New Testament some stuff that may help us, in our studies there as well. So he's lost his understanding. He's lost his mind. He's given the mind of an animal. That's the way we would say it. Okay. So what is 7 times? That's a good question. The Aramaic word means a fixed and definite period of time. But how long is it? Is it 7 hours? Is it 7 days? Is it 7 months? Is it 7 years? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. It's 7 times. It's a definite period of time, a complete period of time. That's what we're talking about. And that's all we can say, really. What is the purpose of waiting these 7 times? Well, look at verse 17. We'll read that in a minute. But I'm going to pick up right in the middle of it. In order that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. Now look at verse 25, where he says, at the end of the verse, till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. Verse 26, at the end of the verse, after you come to know that heaven rules. Skip down to verse 32, where again at the end of the verse he says, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men. And then skip down one more time, beginning verse 34, for his dominion is everlasting, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. No one can restrain his hand or say to him, what have you done? And at the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. My counselors and nobles resorted to me. I was restored to my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways justice, and those who walk in pride he's able to put down. All that's about the kingdom, right? God rules. God rules. So what is the purpose of him being given the mind or the heart of a beast for 7 times, however long that is? The purpose is to cause Nebuchadnezzar to know that God rules over all men and appoints whomever he wills to carry out his purpose. That's the reason. Now, skip down to go to Romans chapter 13. I fear, and I've told this already in this class, I fear that that Christians today live thinking that the whole world and everything that's right revolves around our government, wherever you are, being exactly what you want it to be. And that is a false position. It's a dangerous position. Listen to Paul, Romans 13. Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is God's minister, an avenger, to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore, you must be subject not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you also pay taxes. For they are God's ministers, attending continually to this very thing. Render therefore to all their due, taxes to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. What should be the Christian's view of the government? It's empowered by God. Now, I know that's not always pleasant. You think when Paul wrote that, who was probably the Caesar at that time?
Nero.
Probably Nero. Uh, Nero was a crazy man. And he was not particularly nice to the Christians. Nero, here's what they say happened to him. It's historians, not the Bible. Nero drank a lot of wine from lead cups. And they say that what happened is he got lead poisoning, probably. We don't know that because nobody did an autopsy when he died, or something like that. But he got lead poisoning and it drove him crazy. Nero used to take a Christian and wrap them in oily cloths and hang them from posts around the city of Rome. And when nighttime came, they would light the oily cloths. So the city was literally lit up by the burning bodies of Christians. And yet, Paul says, be subject to the governing authorities. Just pause to think about the power and of that meaning. It is hugely powerful. God is in charge. Can you think of a book in the Bible that highlights the fact that God is in charge? I mean, one book, and its primary purpose is to highlight that God is in charge. Anybody?
Well, so many of them, but I'm gonna say Job.
Ah, okay. Job would be one. You get to the late chapters when God's interviewing Job, asking,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Actually, in its due context, I would probably switch it up to First Peter now.
okay. All right. What about Habakkuk? Look at Habakkuk. We're going to take a little time here. I want us to look at Habakkuk. Habakkuk is sometimes called the prophet of providence. And you see where I'm going with this. You have a lesson that you've got to write on providence. And obviously, you need to take much of what you do from the book of Daniel. That's understood. But you may also be inclined to add you may be inclined to add a little bit from Habakkuk. So I'm going to take the time to read some of Habakkuk for just a minute. The burden which the prophet Habakkuk saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear? Even cry out to you, violence, and you will not save. Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to see trouble? For plundering and violence are before me. There's strife and contention arises. Therefore the law is powerless, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous, therefore perverse judgment proceeds. All right, he's writing in the time when he served as a prophet in Judah. And what he's saying is that in Judah, the wicked Jews are doing terrible things to the righteous Jews. And Habakkuk says, God, how long are you going to put up with this? How long are you going to do this? Now, listen to God's answer. Look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded, for I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told you. For indeed, I'm raising up the Chaldeans, a bitter and hasty nation, which marches through the breadth of the earth to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity proceed from themselves. Their horses also are swifter than leopards, and more fierce than evening wolves. Their chargers charge ahead. Their cavalry comes from afar. They fly as the eagle that hastens to eat. They all come for violence. Their faces are set like the east wind. They gather captives like sand. They scoff at kings, and princes are scorned by them. They deride every stronghold, for they heap up earthen mounds and seize it. Then his mind changes, and he transgresses. He commits offense, ascribing this power to his God. Now, I don't know what you know about the Chaldeans. This is Babylon, of course, under Nebuchadnezzar. But if you were a prophet in Judah and you heard that God has got the answer to all the wickedness in Israel, he's going to send the Chaldeans, it's kind of like, wait a minute, they're worse than we are. And watch, that's exactly what he says next. Are you not, this is the prophet speaking, are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. And at least he does express confidence in God. O Lord, you have appointed them for judgment. O Rock, you have marked them for correction. You are of purer eyes than to behold evil, and cannot look on wickedness. Why do you look on those who deal treacherously, and hold your tongue when the wicked devours a person more righteous than he? Why do you make men like fish of the sea, like creeping things that have no ruler over them? They take up all of them with a hook. They catch them in their net and gather them in their drag net. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice to their net and burn incense to their drag net, because by them their share is sumptuous and their food plentiful. Shall they therefore empty their net and continue to slay nations without pity? You see what he's saying? He's saying, God, I know you're going to take care of us, but you're sending the Chaldeans. They're awful people. Look, they do terrible things. They don't honor you at all. And then Habakkuk says, I will stand my watch and set myself on the rampart and watch to see what he will say to me and what I will answer when I am corrected. So he'd say, I'm going to sit down and wait and see how God's going to explain this to me, because I don't understand. Well, okay, I get it. I don't understand. Now, in the rest of chapter 2, God responds, basically, I'm going to put it in my words. He responds by saying, don't worry about it. I've got a plan for the Chaldeans too. They're going to be defeated. And they're going to endure just what you're going to endure. And then he explains why. I want us to listen to the why. Begin in verse 18. Because remember now, Babylon believes in false gods. So here's God describing that. What profit is the image that its maker should carve it? The molded image, a teacher of lies, that the maker of its mold should trust in it to make mute idols. Woe to him who says to wood, awake, to silent stone, arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, yet in it there's no breath at all. You know what God just said? The Chaldeans are in trouble too, because they trust in gods they made, and those gods can't even breathe. So they don't hear and they don't protect. But now watch the next verse. In the United States, we sing a song that is totally the next verse. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. Now go back and particularly look at, what word did we look at? Verse 13, a watcher. God is always in his temple. The whole earth ought to respect him. Okay, questions or comments through that part?
Jerry, I'm
Yes,
sorry, what was that citation out of Habakkuk?
really, the last part was chapter 2, verses 18 through 20.
Okay, thank you.
The third chapter is fascinating. By the way, I should have gone and read that. Not the whole chapter. Chapter 3, Habakkuk has finally learned, okay, God's in charge. And I want you to listen. I have told Christians that I think they ought to write this down on a card and put it somewhere where they read it every day. Listen to what Habakkuk finally comes to. Chapter 3, 17 through 19. Though the fig tree may not blossom, though the fruit be on the vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, and the fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I'll rejoice in the Lord. I'll joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength. He'll make my feet like deer's feet. He'll make me walk on my high hills. You ever seen a deer jump? I don't care how high they jump, they always land on their feet. And Habakkuk says, even if we don't have one thing, and when you start talking about you eliminate the olives and the vines and what's in the fields, they don't even have any food. And he said, but I'm going to land on my feet. Why? Because the Lord God is my strength. You see why I get people to write that down? We really need to remember that. Okay, we're in a good spot to stop, even though we're not finished, obviously, this chapter. Uh, uh, God's trying to put down the pride of the king. We've already seen that. That's what we're about to really talk about. Let's take a 15-minute break, and then we'll start back. But you're going to read what's going on. You're going to
activate that area or turn it off. And so like they're doing, they're following the list and how they're numbered. And, like, it was just one of the calls, one of that calls it. They're like, they fine, go back in the kitchen. But first, we should have some available. I had talked to our meeting to do that. I think we do. We have Thursday at 6:30 tonight. All right. All right, thank you. Were they already here when you got here or no? They were back there and stuff and so, but anyway, they're working on the kitchen yet, but they already walked in the kitchen, it's already just similar to internal view. When I pulled up, and so we just, what I wanted to be able to do, like, they know when they're working on it, and, I wanted to be able to, you know, get to that, and we identify which unit they're gonna have in the pool out of the garage and stuff. But I got to, want to, it was far behind, you know, if they were not getting, they want me to, yeah. So we do that, today, I'm running cool. It was, it's service that says I'm running cool on the evening. I didn't do it that way, but it might be a little, but, well, maybe on cool, but it's not, no, what I mean is like, it says I'm running cooler than I actually, and on the evening, I don't, I think it's because, I think one of the units, the unit they just activated, I probably have it like this, like that. Oh. And so, so that's what you do, I need to be going back to the call. I can feel it all, it's going back to what I told you about. So it'll, so, yeah, more than that, Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter. All right, I'm on a short break, but we'll move around. Okay.
What do you think, Mario?
So far, so good, brother.
You you seeing a lot of sermon material in all this?
Uh, yes, sir. I am. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you allow me to add something to that, well-needed sermons as well.
Oh, thank you. There, I love speaking about Daniel because it points so much to how God works. It's
Yeah.
one of the great books for that.
And my humble experience has been that oftentimes we shy away from themes or topics or attributes of God that sometimes are far taken away by some denominations that oftentimes we don't want to touch them. So sovereignty is a word that is so often used to justify Calvinism, for
Yeah,
example. So
yeah.
people shy away from that, but we shouldn't do that at all.
No, we shouldn't. I'll tell you, I don't know what you know about this years ago, certainly be older than you are. Uh, Thomas Warren debated Anthony G.N. Flew.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Flew was a great atheist at the time,
Hmm.
and Flew had never debated anyone who claimed to be a Christian who was not a Calvinist. And so Flew, in his opening speeches, would make say this can't be and this can't be and this can't be, and Warren would get up behind him and say, "You're right, it can't be," and it caught Flew kind of flat-footed. He did not know that he'd never heard a non Calvinist debater, and
Hmm.
of course, ultimately it caused Flew to just at the end of the debate he turned into an agnostic. And then before his life ended, he believed in God. Now, did he
Hmm.
become a Christian? I don't have an answer for that, but he did believe in God. So that
Hmm.
was quite a transformation brought about by just what you're talking about. Don't
Right.
don't don't avoid talking about God's sovereignty, and don't avoid talking about free will. And we talked a little bit about that
Hmm.
already in this lesson. The free will is an obvious thing that is within Scripture. Okay, uh, we need to go ahead now. We are up to verse 18. Uh, this dream I, Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now you, Belteshazzar, declare its interpretation, since all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known to me the interpretation, but you are able, for the Spirit of the Holy God is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was astonished for a time, and his thoughts troubled him. So the king spoke and said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its interpretation trouble you. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, may the dream concern those who hate you, and its interpretation concern your enemies. Uh, Now, it's interesting because it seems to me, if you remember chapter 2, when Nebuchadnezzar wanted that dream interpreted, that Daniel emphasized more than once God's the one that reveals these things to you. But here in chapter 4, what we're seeing is that Nebuchadnezzar knows the Spirit of the Holy God is in Daniel. So he knows anything Daniel's going to tell him comes from Daniel's God, the one that he described as the divine, the great God. He's described him that way. Nebuchadnezzar has. So Daniel does not use that kind of thinking early in this interpretation like he did in chapter 2. But what he does do is he just stands totally silent. And I'm trying to think of any parallel. You don't want to. We're not going to get close to it because this dream is so strong in what it means. But let's imagine that you go to the church building Sunday, and you greet some good sister, and she has on a new dress, and it is the ugliest dress you ever saw in your life. I mean, it's awful. And she says, you say, "Oh, good. Hello, sister. I see you have a new dress." And she says, "Oh, yes. What do you think about it?" And your response is to just kind of, what do I say now? I don't like that dress. That dress is ugly, but I can't say that. And so you just stand there silent. Well, Daniel stands silent, but this is more serious than an ugly dress because this dream is really all about Nebuchadnezzar, and he's about to tell him that. So Nebuchadnezzar picks up on the hesitation may be because of the meaning of the dream. And so with that being the case, he's silent until the king says, "Don't worry about what you have to say. Just say it. It's okay. You're giving me the interpretation." So, verse 20, "The tree that you saw, which grew and became strong, whose height reached to the heavens, and which could be seen by all the earth, whose leaves were lovely and its fruit abundant, in which was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and in whose branches the birds of the heaven had their home. It is you, O king, who have grown and become strong, for your greatness has grown and reaches to the heavens, and your dominion to the end of the earth. And inasmuch as the king saw a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven, and saying, 'Chop down the tree and destroy it, but leave its stump and its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze. In the tender grass of the field let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let him graze with the beasts of the field till 7 times pass over him.' This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king." All right, so finally right here, you see Daniel indicate this is God. God's doing the talking, not me. I'm just telling you what God told you, what he revealed to you in the dream. "They shall drive you from men. Your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make you eat grass like oxen. They shall wet you with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over you till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. And inasmuch as they gave the command to leave the stump and roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be assured to you. And after you come to know that heaven rules, therefore, O king, let my advice be acceptable to you. Break off your sins by being righteous, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps there may be a lengthening of your prosperity." All right, begin with the tree is the king. He's powerful. His influence reaches all the way around throughout the earth. This is a world empire. There are 4 of them. You remember from chapter 2, 4 world empires. His is one. The decree that is made is from God, and Daniel made that clear. Break off is a term that is used of breaking a yoke and suggests the king should repent and cast away his sins, like breaking off a yoke that's binding you and casting it away. By the way, wouldn't that make a good illustration for a sermon? As you come to maybe to an invitation to say, we want you to understand today that you who are living in sin are literally in a yoke. And sin is treating you like a beast of burden. But through Jesus Christ, you can break off that yoke and throw it away. The imagery is pretty powerful when you think about it. What is he supposed to do when he breaks off the yoke of sin? He is to practice righteousness. Righteousness is right living in accord with God's word. That definition is very well understood in the book of Psalms. You ever want to study righteousness, look up righteousness in your concordance or in a Bible program of some sort, and you're going to see a lot of references to righteousness in the Psalms. It's always doing what God wants you to do. And then show mercy to the poor. God has been consistent throughout all of his dealings with man. Job, it appears to me, was a patriarch, and yet he tells his so-called friends that he has always taken care of widows. In the law of Moses, you may remember that they couldn't cut the corners of their fields so that strangers that came in and widows and orphans could go in and harvest the fields and they could live off it. They called that gleaning. And Ruth is the great gleaner in Scripture. You know, if you want to see somebody that did it, she's the one. And then now in the New Testament, you may remember in James chapter 1, verse 27, that James says, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. That word visit in James 1:27 does not mean go say, hey, good to see you. It's not that kind of visit. Instead, the word visit means to attend to the needs of. Years ago, I saw a cartoon that someone had drawn, and it was of a nice little house. It had a side door with a screen door on it, and then, of course, a solid door. And the solid door was open, and in holding the screen door open with one child on her hip was this mother whose hair was just, all akimbo, all scrambled. And inside, as you looked through the screen, you could see one little child who had opened up the lower cabinet and was pulling all the pots and pans out on the floor. And you could see another child over here pulling at mom, just screaming. You could see the facial expression. You knew they were screaming. And if you looked straight ahead, you could see a double sink full of dirty dishes. They were higher than the faucet. That's how high they were. And this nice looking woman in a obviously very expensive clothing is talking to this young mother. And here's what she says. If there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. Well, how about taking this child off my hip? How about helping that child put the pots and pans back? How about washing the dishes? There's plenty you could do. Visit in the New Testament is doing it, not just saying hello. Okay, God has always cared for the widows and orphans. And what Daniel is saying to Nebuchadnezzar is, you want to get right with God, you better start taking care of poor people. And apparently he had not been doing that. Okay, so pick up verse 28. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of the 12 months, he was walking about the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke, saying, is not this great Babylon that I have built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power and for the honor of my majesty. Okay, do you notice how many personal pronouns are in that? Just go back and look quickly at that. Is this not great Babylon that there's the first one, built for a royal dwelling by my mighty power and for the honor of my majesty? Who's in charge of Nebuchadnezzar's life? Nebuchadnezzar. Or at least that's what he thinks. That is exactly what he's pointing toward. So here's the response. Verse 31. While the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven. King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom is departed from you. They shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. Now stop a minute. Notice that God uses Nebuchadnezzar's own words. Remember, he describes him as the Most High. But when does he do that? It's in verse 2. After all this is over, Nebuchadnezzar summarizes by saying the Most High God. So he didn't recognize that before, but he's about to find out. That very hour, the word was fulfilled concerning Nebuchadnezzar.
Brother Hampton?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. Real quick, those pronouns they are referring to the Watcher and the Holy One still? I was wondering about that.
In verse, you're talking about now in verse 30, that's the king. That's the king.
But in verse 30, and as well, I was seeing in verse 25.
25, is describing, in 25, it's describing what men will do to Nebuchadnezzar. He's going to lose his mind. They're going to drive him out of the palace, so to speak. So there, it refers to that. So they're going to drive you out. Now, who's going to be responsible? Ultimately, God is. God's the one going to make him lose his mind. Okay. Does that help a little? Okay. All right. So, verse 33. That very hour, the word was fulfilled concerning Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men and ate grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. Can you imagine a man that would look like? No wonder they thought he was crazy. He was crazy. He lost his mind. He's living like an animal. His hair grows so long, it's like eagle feathers. I've seen a few guys that I thought, yeah, he might be like Nebuchadnezzar, but not very many are that way. And his nails, he doesn't trim his nails. They just grow out like eagle's claws. And here he is down on all fours. And what's he eating? He's not eating at the royal table with all the special food they bring him. No. Instead, he's literally, biting the grass and eating it like a cow or an ox, as the case may be. Yeah, Obed, do you have a question? No? You're good. Okay. That's all right. I just don't want to ignore you. Okay, that's all. I don't want to ignore anybody on purpose. I might do it accidentally. Okay. The fulfillment began to take place 12 months later. And you've got to wonder, did Nebuchadnezzar, did the interpretation of the dream impact him for about 12 months? Now, I don't know the answer to that. It may have. Nebuchadnezzar preferred to boast of his building projects rather than his conquests. Nebuchadnezzar was not a conquering king as much as he was a builder king. Now, don't misunderstand me. Did he conquer? Yes, he conquered. But what he was really proud of was his buildings. So you got the hanging gardens we talked about the other day, the beautiful hanging gardens of Babylon. And they were known throughout the world. He loved, so you can just about see him walking around, just strutting along, looking out over his kingdom. And he said, "Oh, I built that building over there, and I built that building over there, and oh, I've organized this city so well. Aren't I a great guy?" And God says, "I'm going to show you who's great. You're going to lose your mind. For 7 times, you're going to lose your mind." He told himself that all he achieved was achieved by his own power and his own majesty. We've got to be really careful. I do not. I'll give you an example. I do not describe the people who worship here where I am. I don't describe them as my people. They're not my people. They're God's people. Now, are they my brothers and sisters? Yes. Are they my people? No. They're God's people. If the church grows, is it because they've got a great preacher here? No. It's because God is a great God. And we need to remember that. In fact, I'll give you a quick sketch of a sermon that I did here. I don't know how it would work. Some of you live in nations other than the United States, and I don't know how it will work there. But years ago, I preached a sermon that I call "What Every Church Needs." And point number 1 is every church needs a puny preacher. Puny, P-U-N-Y, means weak. Okay? W-E-A-K, not 7 days, but no strength. Weak. A weak preacher. And what do I mean by that? Well, he's got to recognize the powers in the Word of God. And a verse you might use to show that, and there are many of them, but one verse you might use is 1 Corinthians chapter 2, when Paul says, "I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified." There's where the power is. The power is in God, not in me, not in you. It's in God. And you could use other verses. I'm not going to go through all those, but you figure some out. The second point is every church needs dirty deacons. Why dirty? Because they need to be busy with their job. Being a deacon is not just an honorary title. In the United States, every now and then, they'll give somebody an honorary doctorate degree. What does that mean? It means he did not earn it. They just gave it to him. And it's a meaningless title, really. They may call him Dr. So-and-so, but it's meaningless. He didn't do anything to get it. Somebody just wanted to flatter him, and they gave him that title. Well, dirty deacons, our problem with deacons is sometimes they don't do their job. And you talk about how they need to do their job. You look at Paul's discussion in 1 Timothy 3. Maybe look at the men who serve tables in Acts chapter 6. Maybe stuff like that. So they need dirty deacons. Third point, every church needs stinking shepherds. Now remember, shepherd, bishop, and elder all referring to the same position. All. Everybody with me on that? You got Acts 20, where in verse 17 he calls the elders, but then he describes them as shepherds in verse 28, and he describes them as overseers, which is the word for bishop in verse 28. So they are elders, shepherds, bishops. And you're going to see the same thing when Peter writes, and he says, "I am a fellow elder," 1 Peter chapter 5. Doesn't he also go on to talk about how they ought to shepherd the flock of God, and they ought to oversee them? See, there are all 3 words again. All one office. That's it. So why do I say stinking shepherds? They tell me, see, okay, if you herd cows, I have never known a man who picked up a cow. Now, you might pick up a calf. You might do that. Although, even a calf, you're not going to pick him up for long. They're pretty hefty, you know. But a cow, I've never seen a cowboy pick up a cow. You know, they weigh upwards of a ton, you know, some of them. You're not going to pick it up. But sheep, if a sheep is, maybe it's young and it can't keep up, the shepherd will pick that sheep up and carry it. If a sheep gets injured and can't keep up, the shepherd will treat the injury and then pick the sheep up and carry it. And so what happens? He acquires the smell of the sheep. All right, what do we want in the church? We want shepherds that smell like the brethren. Don't take that. I'm not talking about literally, okay? I'm talking about they've been with the brethren so much that they're a part of them. It's a family. And then the last point is every church needs mad members. And if you remember, in chapter 26 of Acts, a fellow by the name of Festus says to Paul, when he's talking about the gospel, and particularly the resurrection, he says, Paul, you're mad. Much learning is driving you crazy. I wish every member of the Lord's church was viewed by the world as being crazy. Crazy for souls. Because that's our job. Okay. All that's thrown in for free, by the way. It's not particularly on not particularly on Daniel, just an extra little thought. So God revealed that Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom had already been taken from him. The king's state was intended to bring him to knowledge of the true majesty. And really, maybe I should have capitalized majesty, because when we say true majesty, we're talking about Almighty God. And that's what God's trying to do. So, pick up verse 34. And at the end of the time, or when is this? Well, we don't know. I've already told you. I don't know how long 7 times is. It's long enough for Nebuchadnezzar to be convinced. That I know. It may not be any length of time that you and I would be accustomed to. That is, it may not be a day or an hour or months or years. We don't know. It may just be 7 is a complete number, and so it may just describe a complete length of time that was complete enough to cause Nebuchadnezzar to see the truth. That may be all it is. And it's probably better to say it that way with the brethren than it is to say it any other way. And at the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion. How long did Nebuchadnezzar rule? Well, not forever. Okay, that's the key. He died. Evil Marduk was his son. Later, you'd see Nabopolassar and his son Belshazzar, not Belteshazzar, but Belshazzar. They would take over the rule. But all of them, their rule is short. How long did Alexander the Great rule? Well, not very long. In fact, he died at a very young age. How long did Rome rule? Well, if you take all the Roman Caesars, they still didn't rule very long. Not compared to eternity. I think it's interesting that he says concerning God, his dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom is from generation to generation. All right, you guys have got these 4 documents in your computer. What did he just say about the kingdom? It's everlasting. It's from generation to generation. You're not going to eliminate God's kingdom. Now, Nebuchadnezzar here is talking about the whole earth is God's kingdom. Probably. We're not talking about the church, not at this moment. He doesn't understand that. But he does understand that you can't take God's rule away from him. Verse 35, all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. No one can restrain his hand or say to him, What have you done? At the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. My counselors and nobles resorted to me. I was restored to my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor, watch it, the King of heaven, all of whose works are truth, and his ways justice, and those who walk in pride he's able to put down. Do you think he's describing himself? All those who walk in pride he's able to put down. Yeah. He put King Nebuchadnezzar in his place. And he can do that with us too. I hope he doesn't have to, but he could do it. Now Nebuchadnezzar recognizes the true source of his help is from heaven. So look at Psalm 123 for just a minute. Psalm 123. It's not a long psalm, but listen to it. Unto you I lift up my eyes, O you who dwell in the heavens. Behold, as the eyes of servants look to the hand of their masters, as the eyes of a maid to the hand of her mistress, so our eyes look to the Lord our God, until he has mercy on us. Have mercy on us, O Lord, have mercy on us, for we are exceedingly filled with contempt. Our soul is exceedingly filled with the scorn of those who are at ease, with the contempt of the proud. Once I realized how low I am, that's what Nebuchadnezzar did, then all of a sudden I realized how high God is. And that's the lesson that he learned. I want us to notice that it's interesting that he lifts up his eyes, he looks to heaven, and I want to think about Lot. Lot lifted up his eyes, he saw the Jordan Valley, while Abraham lifted up his eyes and he saw as God directed. That's Genesis 13. No one can oppose God's action. Isaiah 40 verse 17 shows that. We could look there briefly because it underscores it. There are other verses. I just gave you one more, but there are other verses that would show it as well. Isaiah chapter 40 verse 17. Here's what the prophet said. All nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted by him less than nothing and worthless. We sometimes get proud of our physical nations. Be careful. They're not God. They're not eternal. Nations have come and gone, and I'm going to dare say they're going to continue to come and go. If the world stands, that's what's going to happen. All right, then chapter 43, also of Isaiah, verse 13. He once more, listen to what he says about God. Indeed, before the day was, I am he, and there is no one who can deliver out of my hand. I work, and who will reverse it? You can't, God's in charge. That's what we've been showing. And remember, and by the way, those of you that are writing that paper on providence, that'd be everybody in the class, you might note Isaiah 43:13. That's talking about God's in charge. That's what we have. So Kyle makes this statement. Nebuchadnezzar thus recognized the humiliation which he experienced as a righteous punishment for his pride, without, however, being mindful of the divine grace which had been shown in mercy toward him. He does not say, and that's it may not be that he didn't know it, but nowhere in what he says does he say, God lifted me back up. See, he recognizes God eliminated his pride, but he doesn't say God lifted him back up. All right. Questions about chapter 4 or comments? First of all, about that.
brother?
Yes.
I was looking when it says that Nebuchadnezzar lifted his eyes, and I was
Yes.
in Luke 15:17 when the prodigal son came into himself and started reflecting, and I was that connection came to my mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. He lifted his eyes toward God because God's the one helped him see again, so to speak. Yeah. Very good. Anybody else?
Well, just to add a second Costa Rican to the list, brother, do you think it would be too much of a stretch to believe that the king was a saved man after his humiliation?
I I don't think we can know.
Okay.
My instincts are that, well, I don't know because God knows what he had available to him. He knows what he learned and how he changed. I don't know all of that. I only know what's here.
Mhm.
So I usually tell people when they start asking me about, do you think my family member, for example, went to heaven? I'll just say, well, finally, that's God's job. That's not my job to determine where somebody goes. It is something you wonder about. What about Solomon, for example? We know
Mhm.
we know he went bad, but does he write Ecclesiastes at the end of his life? Did he change? Maybe. It's a possibility that he did. It's a good question. I don't have a good answer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody else? We did not cover two chapters. Nathan, what you got? I see you unmuted.
Oh,
So,
I'm good.
oh, okay. Um, Now, here's my question for all of you. Are you now beginning to see how these lessons should be unfold? Providence, kingdom, uh, sovereignty. Are these things starting to show up in your mind a little bit? We're only through 4 chapters, but you better get it pretty solid before you get to chapter 6. Because once you get to chapter 7, we're entering into a lot of apocalyptic literature, and we'll talk more about that later. I've actually got a PowerPoint that should be in the LMS. I think I saw it the other day. That's on interpreting apocalyptic literature. So we're going to talk about that later, not now. But you really need to catch, except for the last one, which is God's sovereignty throughout the book, which I think you'll see it. Um, except for that one, you pretty much better get it while you're in the first 6 chapters. Now, you don't have to write it while you're there. You can. You can submit it. See, Ernest has already submitted the first one, but he missed all of my glorious thoughts about the kingdom today. See, uh, if you don't know, Ernest and I are friends, and I gig him every time I get a chance. So, uh,
I'm an
any
easy
question?
target, Gary.
Do what now? So easy
I'm an
target.
easy target.
I don't I don't really think so. I just think you're the kind of guy that we laugh together and it's okay. So that's good.
We're
Uh,
good. We're good.
yeah.
Well, you owe me a
Uh,
cup of coffee when I get to PTP.
okay. Well, I'll get you a cup of coffee. I'm gonna get a Dr. Pepper, but that's okay. All right. Um, anybody? Any questions about what we've done so far? Not just chapter 1, but 1 through 4. Any questions? Any thoughts that you have up to now?
Did have one thought that had come up with somebody I was talking to back when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were
Yeah.
when they were uh, when they were turned in. Where was Daniel? Why was he not turned in?
Yeah, and we don't know that. He was in a higher position than they were, and maybe he was off doing his work. I mean, but anything I say is speculation. I don't know,
Yeah.
Taylor. I don't know. He was not there. That I know, because he wouldn't have bowed down either. We know that. We know that from all the other things we learned about Daniel. But where was he? I don't know. Good question. Anybody else or anything else?
I miss I miss the first class, but is it chapter 4 before chapter 3 chronologically?
I do not think so. I think now I don't know that, but in my study of Daniel, I think right now we're following chronology. We're going right down the line, and when we get to chapter 5, which will be next time, we're going to come to the end of the Babylonian Empire. Now, when you get to chapter 7, you'll kind of backtrack, and Babylon will be included again, and of course, Media Persia, Greece, and Rome. They'll all be in it. But I think, and this is my thinking, I can't prove it. Okay, so flags have gone up everywhere, guys. See, and gals. But I think that this is pretty much chronological at this point. Now, when you get into chapter 7, you're going to watch, and he's going to give you dates in a sense. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. That's the opening statement of chapter 7. So in those chapters, we'll be able to say, no, this happened before that and stuff like that. But right now, I don't know. I think it's in order, but I don't know that. Okay, who raised their hand? I saw somebody. Obed, was that you? I've lost you. Oh, what do you got?
Yes, thank you so much. Just a quick one. I wasn't present at the initial stages, so I don't know if I missed anything. But I wanted to ask if chapter 4 was written by the king himself, the entire chapter, because it seems to me that it was written by the king. And if so, how do we make a case that Daniel was the author of the book? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. What I said was, it appears to me that Daniel writes down the statements of the king. I think that's what happens here, is that Daniel is recording what the king said. The opening verses 1 through 3, appear to be like a decree that he sent throughout his empire. And the opening verses 1 through 3 really summarize the conclusion that he comes to in verse 37. And then Daniel sets out everything that the king said. And yes, it is the words of the king, but you will notice, I'll give you an example. In the book of Matthew, we have the words of Pilate. Did Matthew stop writing and Pilate spoke? No. Matthew recorded the words of Pilate. And I think that's what you've got here, is that, yes, I think these are the words of Nebuchadnezzar. I don't have a problem with that. But Daniel records them, and reports them to us. And by the way, that means the Holy Spirit made sure that if the king made a misstatement, we didn't get the misstatement, we got the reality. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? That's a good question. I've never had anybody ask that question, but that's a good one. All right. Anybody else? All right. Anything I could change or improve in the class? I'm glad to try to work on it. I just have to know what you're talking about. Okay, nobody raised their hand and today because of my vocabulary, and I'm not. I'm aware. First of all, my English is going to be theoretically a little bit further along than the English of somebody who has English as a second language. I'm going to know, I will necessarily know words you don't know. And so that you've got to just be prepared to raise your hand and say, wait a minute, didn't understand that word. Don't know what you're talking about. And I will occasionally use idioms, although not very often in Daniel. But Americanisms, idioms, they could be confusing to you. I remember my wife used an idiom of sorts with a little boy. She used to teach 4-year-old kindergarten in Mobile, and this little boy had been acting up the whole day, and she finally looked at him and said, "Young man, if you don't quit, you're going to be in hot water." And she said his eyes got big as saucers because all he could see was her putting a great big pot of water on top of the stove and getting her hot and putting him in, you know. Well, it's an idiom, okay? That's what it is. It doesn't mean she's going to actually boil this little guy. What it means is he's in trouble. Yeah, he better shut it down, you know, real quick. Okay, so I will use idioms, and you just have to raise your hand and say, "Wait a minute, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" I'll do my best to make it clear. Restate it another way. All right, everybody's good? All right, now remember, I delayed the lesson on the kingdom. Originally, it was due Monday of this week. It is now due by next Monday. Now, I let you have all the way till midnight Monday night. My time, not your time. Midnight Monday night, my time. So if you now need to write that, and what should it be? All right, Francine is not going to write a sermon because I don't expect Francine to preach a sermon. But Francine is going to write a lesson on the kingdom that is designed maybe to teach children. So she may write a very simple lesson, and that's fine. Because I want whatever you do to be usable. Okay, is everybody with me on that? It needs to be something you can use. I would expect Chip and Nathan, and I could go on name all the rest of you guys. I'd expect you all to at least design a lesson you could teach in a Bible class, and they would understand the kingdom better because of your lesson. Okay, everybody understand? You say, how long is it supposed to be? Long enough to do a lesson? If you've ever seen one of my outlines, probably most of you have not, they're really short. Why? Because I know what goes in them. So if I should just be able to look at your either sermon or your Bible class lesson, and I should be able to see, yes, he knows how to teach this to other people. That's all I've got to see. Okay? All right, no more questions? All right, we'll close out for today, and Lord willing, I'll see you next Monday. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.